everybody. Welcome back to Psychedelics. Today we are joined by two members of the Heroic Hearts Project team, Allison Wilson and Jesse Gould. How are you both doing today?
Great. How are you?
Doing fantastic, Joe. It's been a while.
Lovely.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, totally. So we're here to talk a little bit about an event that's coming up as a gala for fundraising for Heroic Hearts Project in Los Angeles in early December. Before we dig into that, Jesse, can you give us like an outline of what is Heroic Hearts Project?
Yeah, absolutely. So I myself am a veteran. I think we've dug deep into the history in previous Psychedelics Today podcasts, so definitely check those out. But yeah, Army Ranger, deployments Afghanistan. I, like many veterans and veteran families, faced mental health issues, struggles, post-military, and going to the VA was essentially the avenue to be on medications the rest of my life, and that didn't seem like an ideal step to take. And fortunately, I heard about psychedelics around that time, super skeptical, never done a psychedelic in my life, never had interest in doing them, but found my way to Peru, kind of a leap of faith, and went to an ayahuasca retreat, and super challenging, but in that also very healing, restorative in many different ways, psychologically, physiologically, and just from my own experience and hearing all these other amazing stories around me, and at that same time having lost or double-digit friends to their own battles, and many more on that path, decided to start Heroic Hearts Project early 2017 because there really was no veteran organization or resource at that time, or prominent one, that was really bringing this to the public veteran square. And so one is to talk to veterans in a way that made it more approachable to them in veteran language, so to speak. But that two, if people were interested from the connections I made, I wanted to set them up for success. And so that's kind of what we've been doing for the last 7+ years, is connecting veterans with a multi-month program of preparation, peer support, group support, grants for retreats that are top quality around the world, and then the aftercare integration and continue follow up with that. We've also engaged with a lot of research projects to track what we're doing and have comparable data to the VA and just show how effective these treatments are. And then also a lot of policy work. So a lot of the states that have passed psychedelic policy, as well as the DC side of things, just getting veteran voices. This really has become one of the last bipartisan issues, because I think primarily of the veteran side of things. And we can go into this a little bit. One of the things we're really excited about is we did one of the first ever veteran retreats in the U.S. and in the state of Oregon through their psilocybin program, and are really looking to ramp up efforts in Colorado, your home state, Joe, next year, and really start creating what does the psychedelic culture look like for the U.S. How does this integrate with the mental health apparatus, especially now that MDMA is delayed. Along that route, was fortunate enough to meet Allison and her husband, and Allison can tell you a little bit more about what they're doing, but they've come into the Heroic Hearts universe and been phenomenally helping us with spouse and peer and family support. But I'll kick it over to Allison to go into that a little bit more.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and thanks, Joe. I think the last time we chatted with Grace as well, right? We talked about the spouse piece and the women in this. So thanks for having us on again. I come from that spouse side. My husband was a SEAL for 16 years, got out, just had a really hard and rough transition. I think it was just like a lot of veterans coming out, losing their purpose, their passion, just kind of not knowing what they're going to do. He was fortunate enough to find Ibogaine and go that route about 7-8 years ago, but I was not very involved in the process, and I also wasn't a huge fan of what was happening and him coming home and feeling, healed, and the world looked so much different through the lens he had now, and still kind of being in that funk that I was in as a spouse, and, having that kind of what I now know is, the secondary PTSD and a lot of the trauma that I went through, just throughout all of my years, even into childhood too. Everything was kind of packed on, and it kind of it got to a breaking point after he went through his first journey. So I got to a point about 4 years ago where I went on mine. And from that birthed the Hope Project. And the Hope Project started out as a liaison to different retreats and then supporting spouses with, how they would support their veterans on when they went to retreat, how they were feeling about that, how to kind of support them on holding space for them when they came home. And then, met Jesse with Heroic Hearts, and we started supporting the veterans that all went through Heroic Hearts Project. It was pretty organic how it happened and how we merged, and how, now we have the family piece under Heroic Hearts and are able to create our very own spouse retreats, which has been phenomenal. Last year we did 4 spouse retreats, one of them being in Oregon. So the very first, in-state spouse retreat for veteran spouses, which was really exciting. And just, kind of building off of that as well. It's not just it hasn't just been the actual retreat, it's been the community around it, having 400 spouses on our list in our community now, and being able to offer them the prep work, the retreat, the integration, mindfulness practices, just work afterwards. We've got a full roster of about 10 spouses on our coaching roster as well. So they're able to kind of give back and stay in this space too. So we have really exciting things coming up with the research on secondary PTSD, with more retreats this coming year. We already have 4 booked out for the beginning of next year. And just, really excited about where this work is going for the family members too.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that we're thinking in larger systems now. I think what a lot of people don't necessarily get is if the whole family system isn't included, it can be really disruptive and potentially really hard for the families to integrate the newly healed person back into their family. It can be hard. So I'm glad it's like looking more broad. I was very impressed when I started hearing about that a while ago. So great work, Allison. So let's talk about this gala event. So what's going on in Los Angeles? Early December, I'm going to guess 7. I don't
December
actually know
5th.
the date, but 5th, so close.
5th, yep. Yeah, sure. I can touch on that a little. This is something new for Heroic Hearts. This is something that we kind of had chatted about, and we were like, we want to do a gala, but not a gala. We want it to be fancy, but not super fancy. But we really, really just want to recognize, like, all our donors, all our supporters, the veterans that have, worked so hard to allow us to get where we are. Have some unsung heroes there that we're going to be recognizing. It's going to be a really amazing evening. We've got, like Jesse said, I think it's our numbers are looking fantastic now. We're going to have over 100, 150 people there, a full live auction, silent auction, dancing, just a place to really recognize everyone in this space, and to be able to just kind of like showcase what we're doing now and in the future, and really wanting to bring together everyone too. This is, it's a gala not just for us, but it's really for everybody that's been here with us for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I'm going to try to make it.
Might be
I
bit...
have my flights and
Awesome.
ready to be there.
Yeah, my feed might be a little bit lagged, so I apologize on that. But yeah, we're gonna have a performance by Melissa Etheridge. They're gonna be there, which we're super excited about. And yeah, I'll be the first to admit I have a inherent fear or trauma of running events and nobody showing up, and that's very present throughout this. A very stressful first event, but it's about time that we do it. We bring together the community, because at the end of the day, we get a lot of publicity, or the name gets out there, or what have you, but really these efforts are by everybody in the community, whether it's the donors, the veterans behind the scenes, our great coaches. We have over 50 veterans and spouses that are our peer support coaches. other people in the community, this sort of big tent that have yourself included, Joe, of hitting this from different angles, getting the message out there, doing the groundwork, doing the research, doing the service right now. And all of those people deserve to be recognized and deserve to have a little bit of fun. And so we hope this accomplishes that. We obviously want to raise money for our tasks next year, but really we just want people to get together that have been in this together for quite a while and just, have a good event. It's like any conference. The biggest part of the conference is it's almost like a reunion, right? Like you go to a few of the presentations, but it's really the best part is like seeing each other again and seeing where people are at and what they're accomplishing.
Yeah. It's excellent and so true. Like, yes, you can go see some talks, but it's really the networking and the connections and the friends that you went so deep with over a weekend of a conference somewhere. And it's so lovely to just meet others who are also so engaged in the topic and helpful and kind of like helps refill our batteries quite a bit. So I'm thankful you're doing it in this way. Everything doesn't need to be so intellectual. Like it's okay to have events. And I think there's something about conviviality, just, sharing, breaking bread, drink, like having drinks with people, like all this kind of stuff just builds collegiality, trust, and can bear new fruit, new projects, new financing for helping move things forward. It's really, really awesome and really important. And I love that you're doing it in Los Angeles. I think it's a really important city that I think most folks don't touch enough in America. Is there much of a veteran population that you're connected with in Los Angeles or Los Angeles Metro?
There is actually a big, because I'm here in New York, and so a lot of people were asking like why not do it in New York and all this kind of stuff. And you really can feel the difference even in the U.S. of how far the conversation of psychedelics has gone. And so there is a discussion. There's great groups in New York, but it's not to the level that it is in like California and that. So just in terms of like a lot of the supporters, a lot of the companies, a lot of the donors, all that kind of stuff, a lot of them tend to be in the California area. And then there is a decent veteran population, at least in the surrounding area. A lot nearby in Texas, Nevada. California has one of the largest veteran populations in the U.S. And then especially, Allison can speak more to this, of Southern California has like the big Navy SEAL population as well.
Yeah, Allison, can you tell us a little bit about the SEAL community and
No,
kind of where
yeah,
they're
of course.
concentrated?
Yeah, I mean, and that's where we, San Diego houses the Buds compound and the base that the West Coast guys are at. So we have a huge veteran population in that special forces community there in that San Diego, outskirts, Coronado, outskirts of San Diego area. So it's kind of great to have, an event where we can invite people and they can just take a drive up to LA and they can be there. So, and I think we kind of wanted that, like edgy vibe to it as well. So being in LA and making it more of that kind of edgy vibe with Heroic Hearts and Melissa Etheridge too, her singing a few songs. I think it's gonna be really great.
Yeah, it's really fun. So this is something people can join, right? This is not an invite-only event.
Yeah, the theme of it is gentleman biker. So if you don't know what that means, you can look up like the Instagram. But I think, old school biker, Peaky Blinders kind of thing. So wanted to have it be a little bit fun, not just super formal, but come as you are. What formal clothes you have, but we're excited to see what costumes come up from that.
Yeah, and Joe, I can put out my email address if anyone's interested, because we do have a link for tickets. So I can definitely do that and give it to you to put out on the podcast as well.
Yeah, I love that, and let's do that. I'll be sure to email it out to folks as well and circulate on our socials. And yeah, it would be really fun to meet all sorts of folks that listen to the show and also want to figure out how to support veteran mental health quite a bit. And this has been a passion topic of mine for a long time. I always try to figure out my why with it. Like, where is my connection? I just have so many veteran friends. I think that's it. And I've seen how much they've had a hard time, and a lot of veteran family as well. So I'm like, okay, this is just something our country isn't really doing a great job with. And it's up to us to do it as a collective and to help folks collectively. I remember this whole conversation around how tragic it is we have to go overseas to get our healing. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really excited about this Colorado and Oregon projects that y'all are working on. I think that's great. And I hope we can continue to just, be able to keep people domestic and not make them have to fly somewhere crazy. Or just, even tropical places can be a little crazy and hectic sometimes, but it's important. So it's going to be a really fun event. It's on the tail end of the MJ BizCon and Remind event in Las Vegas, and I'm hopeful that a number of people from that event will, head home early and join, because there is definitely a lot of this crossover in the cannabis industry and psychedelic industries. So I'm really just excited for that. So Allison, can you tell us a little bit about a little bit more detail about your kind of connection and path here to what made you really want to start getting families more involved?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head in the beginning when you said if families aren't involved, we're not really going to help. It's not really helping the veteran at all and helping heal them. My husband founded Seal Future Foundation about 10 years ago, and, they did not have a family piece. And what I always said to him was, we can spend so much money on getting these guys healed, or, sending them to a trip, or, having them go do medicine work or any work. But if we don't have the families involved back home, they're going to come home, and that wife and those kids are going to feel the exact same way they did on the deployment. And they're not going to feel involved. They're not going to be seen. They're not going to be heard. You really want to come at this as healing the entire family unit. So I think that's what, is so special about the organization that kind of we've created with merging these, is that, you're not only getting the healing from heroic hearts, but you're getting the healing for the family as well. This doesn't mean that a spouse needs to go to a psychedelic journey, to be able to be involved in this. I have a ton of spouses that are like, I'm really not ready to do that. I don't think that's for me, which is totally fine. We're still going to offer them the coaching. We're going to offer them the support. We're going to offer them the community. We have other practices that they could do, on Zoom or hopping in on some other workshops that will allow them to understand how to be there for not only themselves, but their own veteran. And I think what's really special about this too is that the women come to me and they're like, I didn't realize there was anything just for me. Like, the spouses come to me and they're like, this is amazing, because I didn't know there was anything just for me. It's a lot. There's so much talk and highlight around the veteran, which definitely there should be. But I think we tend to forget. I like to call them the boots on the ground at home, right? We tend to forget about those people, the spouses, the children. And if you do start to heal the family unit together, that's when the generational healing comes in, and I've got these spouses contacting me 6 months to a year afterwards saying, oh my gosh, I never had a relationship with my child before. I used to be in the summer, I have to get them to as many summer camps as I can. And now I'm saying no, I really want to hang out with them and have this relationship with them. So it's really special to be able to see that. I mean, even personally for me, I know I could ask any one of my 5 kids, how were Dad and I before we went down this path? And they would pretty much just tell us, you were jerks. In other words, probably, but they would say, that. And now them being able to say okay, I can talk to you about things. You're open. You can hear me and step back and say, okay, I understand what you're saying, almost, treat them like a family unit, and involve them in more things. So I think just, again, personally, and talking to other family members, the relationships have just gone above and beyond after doing this work.
Yeah, I appreciate that. When people are such, push so hard, and it's, for years and years, and that's your career, and there's some, danger and, traumatic events in the mix, it's coming back to domesticity is really hard. And I love it being a team approach to say, okay, like I need to like figure out how to be really active. I know like the existing programs are pretty bare bones from what I understand in terms of like what is offered. Like what is offered right now when people come out like from the government, right? Like not necessarily from like other service orgs, but like what does it look like when you're saying, okay, you're done, you can go off active duty, go back to your family. Like what is there?
I don't, I can talk to like what my husband went through, and I can let Jesse kind of speak about his experience as well. But I know that my husband, really tried hard with the VA when he got out to go talk to somebody because he saw himself declining. Um, it, I hate to say throw them to the wolves when you kind of get out of the teams, but there's not a ton that is tied to the SEAL teams. There are a lot of nonprofits that he could go to that say, hey, here's support with this, support with that. From resume building to internships to psychedelics to other modalities. There's a lot of those options. But I know when he actually went to try the VA route, he said he got so frustrated with trying to find a parking spot, and he was 30 minutes late to his appointment, and they pretty much shut him down when he walked in the door, and they were like, "Yeah, no, you're 30 minutes late. Sorry, we're not helping you." So that was the extent of him even trying to trying to get an appointment and then trying to make it a positive experience. And I don't, yeah, Jesse, I know maybe you can speak to a little bit this a little bit more, but I have not personally utilized anything from the government for family support when we got out. And, I can't really talk on that. I'm not really sure. I know the VA is definitely trying their hardest. I understand that. I think they're overwhelmed with the amount of people coming in. And I think that's why it's really important and crucial for us to have organizations like these to be able to support people.
Mm-hmm. Right. There's a lot of mutual learning. Jesse, anything you want to add to that?
Ex- Yeah, I have the same experience of that, and again, like what Allison said, this is not to knock especially the people within the VA. There's some great, amazing people. It's just one of the world's largest healthcare providers, so it's going to be this slow moving giant. And sort of the expression that often gets used is if you know one VA, you know one VA because they operate almost like individual hospitals, and so there's like an overarching theme to them, but you might be able to get access to ketamine therapy in one and not they might not hear about it at all in another one. And there's all sorts of these different things of each VA, your quality of care is going to vary differently. Uh, and so that's kind of the big dynamic, and it is focused on the veterans because there's millions of veterans in need, and so there are going to be some that have family care and programming, but it's not really known for that, right? And then again, hospital to hospital, because even like in terms of spouse care, there's very unless you're like married within the VA or certain criteria afterwards. Like if you got married after your military service, then your wife wouldn't get automatic health care from it, right? So it's that, and that tends to be just talking with the spouses, with the families, um, with any of these services. There's not really information resources or there's not really ease of access for them to even figure out, like even beyond their own care, to figure out what is offered to the veteran, right? And it's oftentimes, more often than not, that it's like the spouse that is pushing the veteran to try new options or that's discovering these new different treatments. And it's the person behind the scenes of like, hey, doing the research, booking the travel, figuring all that kind of stuff out. And so even just providing the team, each person, different access to these resources is a huge benefit that's just not there. So it is clunky. It is trying, but we also have to understand it for what it is, right? Like if I have an emergency, here in New York, it's tricky. Like it takes me 40 minutes of subway rides just to get to the hospital. Um, but if I have like a broken leg or something like that, I'll go there and I can expect decent, great care, right? And then even with the mental health side, I'd say it's lacking, but I think the broader U.S. mental health side is lacking as well. The VA just has to use what they call like evidence-based treatments, and just because it's called evidence-based doesn't mean it's the most effective. It just means that's the one that has been approved and has research behind it. And so that tends to be some degree of cognitive behavioral therapy, especially prolonged exposure, which tends to have a very high dropout rate. And then oftentimes that's more often than not paired with some degree of medication. So you're going through talk therapy, and those can be effective. And then you have the medication, which is also effective for some. The medication doesn't tend to, it tends to suppress the issues and not, and counter to psychedelics, right? Bring up the issues and have you address it. So you do get these situations where veterans are on medications for decades, and then because of the side effects, it leads to more medications, and then the next thing you know, it's not rare for someone to be on 5 to 10 different medications out there. So it's just sort of, but that's what they have. That's they especially with psychedelics, because it's federally illegal, and they can't just say like, hey, go try this random thing, because they're dealing with millions of people, right? So you need to, like, we need to help them out through federal policy, through all these sort of degrees, and we need to bring in the family. And like, one of the biggest things that we're excited about too is the generational healing. It's almost a trope at this point where the veteran, the military person who is the parents, the Vietnam vet father who had all sorts of trauma and issues and addictions after that. The kid grows up in an unstable, unhealthy, possibly abusive, or at least not a good figure childhood to grow up, and more often than not, that kid will develop their own traumas or their own addictions or their own issues, and it just kind of keeps going up. Like, if you're abused as a kid, you're far more likely to abuse your kids, right? It's a continuous sort of a ring, and even if you're not to that degree, if you're emotionally unavailable or expressing trauma, it carries on to the next generation. And so with these treatments and with the help of Allison, when we're working with both sides of it, then that kid is more than likely going to have now two more present, more emotionally available, more healed parents, and be able to hopefully cut off any sort of possibility of their trauma, and then lead the next generation of a healthier lifestyle. And so that's sort of this, not only are we just helping the veterans now, but this has ripple effects. And you can see the Vietnam War, how much that scarred American society afterwards. And it's not just in the individual person, it really permeates much broader into that. And in comparison, we've been at war for over 20 years with the various war on terrorism engagements. And there's, like I said, millions of people who have had these experiences, who hold these traumas, who have been injured both mentally and physically. And we're really not doing enough to help them out, but then also help heal the future potential societal scars that will come from this in the generations to come.
I do love the long-term implications of us doing this work at scale, and how potentially, if we do this really well, psychically healthy the country can become. And hopefully that radiates out to the rest of the world. And a lot of our problems come from not having our heads straight, right? Like, there's a lot of psychiatric situations that are informing how poorly the world is getting executed on. And we can do a lot better and help so much more people. So I'm really thankful. And just very, very glad at your level of dedication, Jesse. I'm really happy, Allison, to see you on board and helping quite a bit too. And the team, the Heroic Hearts team, is awesome. Like, Jesse, I think when we started talking, it was just you. And now it's like an amazing international organization. You just came out with that, was it an integration workbook for veteran-focused population recently? That's awesome. I'm very happy that exists. I'm going to buy some copies for my friends. Yes, that's so great. And, that intersecting with improved drug policy in Colorado, Oregon, and hopefully some other states soon. I'm actually going to an event for a kickoff for Alaska tomorrow night, which is interesting. See if we have legal mushrooms there. That would be interesting. That book for a veteran population in a legal jurisdiction we're going to see a lot of really great movement. I'm very excited. And then this whole like peer support model, I'm assuming you guys have built in. It's going to be amazing. Like the next couple years for Heroic Hearts, I'm very excited for. I hope you all are too. I know it's hard, but it's such an important mission.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying all that, Joe. Like we are super excited. The Veterans Guide to Psychedelics, you can pick it up on Amazon, and it's informative. It has baseline information of what you need if you're sort of novice to this, as well as it's a workbook. So there's prompts, there's things about intentions and integration and holding good habits post retreat. So from beginning to end to continuous your journey in the future, it's just a really good resource. And also, like a journal too, so that you can always have that for when you need to come back to it. So, yeah, we're very excited. I think Heroic Hearts is in the most ideal position or better position than we have been ever in the past 7 years. Just with where we've grown, the reputation we've been able to build with the broader community, but also the veterans and the families. Finally getting some more decent sized funding that allows us to do projects like these. And really, we're at the wind is at our backs. We can't rest on our laurels. We're still a nonprofit. We got to get out there and hustle. And you know how the space is, Joe, of like the money is never a guarantee. It comes and goes in the space pretty quickly. And every year is a brand new year. It's a very fast moving industry that you can never just depend on what happened last year for it to come. But we are extremely excited about it. And there have been some setbacks this year with like Massachusetts and the FDA, but there has also been some tremendous gains and positive momentum, especially with who is speaking about psychedelics, right? So I've had a meeting with the Undersecretary of the VA, Dr. Elnahal, and thinking even 5 years ago that the VA undersecretary would be gung ho about psilocybin and MDMA and be very knowledgeable on it was just unfathomable back then. But that's where we're at. And, politics aside, wherever you land, there is more people at the highest level now talking about psychedelics than ever before. There's a big gap between inaction and what that looks like, and don't want to get tangled up in all the current craziness, but there is this elevation of the conversation of psychedelics versus where it was years ago, which is exciting, right? Because people are paying attention. Just with some of the work we've done in DC with Healing Breakthrough and Juliana Mercer, that this really is like one of the few bipartisan issues left on both sides of the aisle. Strangest of bedfellows coming together because they're seeing the results, right? And the results speak for themselves, which is why I think it's moved so fast. And to the point, I think that was mentioned earlier, obviously I'm a veteran. Allison's husband's a veteran. We come from veteran community, and there are many others that deserve healing, right? It's not just veteran centric. There's far more people with PTSD than veterans out there, right? And they all deserve effective care. But in the current reality in the U.S., veterans do have a lot of political capital. And both sides, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, at least say they support veterans. We are fortunate to be in a very supportive era of the U.S. And so for us, we want to use that political capital and that leverage to move effective policy that we think will help everybody else, right? And so that's sort of the reality of like we do have this ability to get into the rooms with policymakers, with people, with deal makers, and pushing this forward and using the veteran voice as that wedge, effectively will then help all the other people with PTSD, will help all the other people with depression and addictions and all this kind of stuff, because it's the point right now is to get into the room that's making the decisions to get effective policy, and that's just going to lift all boats. And so that's what we're excited about. And on the other side, we've always tried to be as open source as possible. So like even like with these kind of resources, with this book, it's geared towards veterans, but we hope other people use it, or if people want to tweak it for their own purposes, we're perfectly fine with that. We'll be handing out like free PDFs of it, right? In Oregon, because we've had a lot more experience with some newer organizations on what degree of integration do we provide, what are the resources, what are the documents, what's the legality, what's all that sort of stuff. We always gladly hand that out to whoever needs it, because we've made the mistakes, we've figured it out, we've tweaked it over the years, we've come up with ethics for our coaches, we've come up with all this kind of stuff because it became a necessity, it became something like that. And so other people don't have to make those same sort of figure it out and take that long. We always try to be as open source. And so going forward, that is what I think is a big missing piece in the space as well, is attention is growing around psychedelics and awareness, but we need a lot more risk reduction resources, infrastructure, materials. So like you said, people who might not be familiar can look up on Amazon or go to the library and find resources, guides, so that they're not just like, hey, I'm suffering, let me just take a handful of mushrooms and figure it out, right? They have ways of accessing this, because I know how intimidating these things can be, of like, you hear about this, but then like, where do I start first? And then just broadly in the space, because we do serve a large amount of people every year, that gives us this ability of like, hey, this really didn't work with this demographic, this group, or this issue, or this is what we're really nervous about, or this is what we found to be particularly effective. And being honest with ourselves too, if something doesn't work, own that and figure out how to tweak it, and then share that with the broader space. So I think there's a huge need going forward for that infrastructure and resources, and we're hoping to produce more things like this.
Yeah, I love that. Allison, would you be able to share a little bit on your perspectives and your time with Heroic Hearts Project, and why you have trust enough to commit so much time to Heroic Hearts Project?
Sure. Like I said before, so Jesse was always there since day one, since I started. I started a nonprofit when I came home from Costa Rica and COVID just hit, and it was starting a nonprofit with the word psychedelics somewhere in it, especially right when COVID hit, was a little tough. So from day one, Jesse and my husband, we all met each other together, so they're friends. And from day one, he kind of helped me with just the nitty gritty, parts of it, like how to become a nonprofit, like what he learned when he opened up HHP. And I think that, that turned into a really amazing relationship with us, allowing me to coach the spouses of the veterans that went to HHP's retreats. With that, I think I was able to get to know the team, how they did things, how their process worked, and from there, really, Hope just kept growing. It was just myself, really, that was running Hope, and then I had contractors, as coaches, and some therapists and doctors that we contracted with, and retreat centers that we would go ahead and vet. But with the growth of it, there was just no way I was able to do this on my own. And, I really didn't want to. I don't see Hope as mine. I see Hope as, every, spouse or woman or family member in the veteran space. Like we truly want, or, not even just the veteran space. Like Jesse said, my hope is to grow this to even larger populations. But I think coming into HHP, being able to utilize, social media managers, how they worked their donor Salesforce situations, like how they ran their retreats, how they ran their programs. How they ran their program was a lot like what I did with Hope Project and what I wanted to build for these spouses. So just like I said, it was really an organic and easy merge. And I came in as the director of family programs. Right now, I'm doing some more help with the donor development side, just being able to use my voice this last year on why we need to raise more funds for the family members and being able to use like my personal story. And then also helping out with some of the events right now. Heroic Hearts is not a huge team. It's a small team made up of some amazing, wonderful people that work really hard and wear a lot of different hats. So, we kind of just all pitch in and help with that. But I'm still very involved in, just the day to day and the vision of hope and where it's going, but also have been able to grab a few people from the HHP team that have been doing this for a long time and help me kind of navigate that vision too. I tend to have very big ideas, and so I have to be like reined in sometimes. So they help me kind of, navigate that piece of it. But it's just been really exciting. I think that us all as a team work together really well. We've been able to, it's just, it says it for itself. Like they had the very first veteran retreat in the States in Oregon, right? And then within a month after that happened, we had a spouse retreat there too. So, I think Jesse and I both, I don't think we say no a lot. And if there's a need for it and people want to see it, then we're going to make it happen. I think that's like with this gala too. It's kind of like we wanted to recognize a lot of these veteran voices. We're going to have a panel there with these veteran voices. We know that there's a need for us to be able to have a platform to chat about more of the domestic side of this, for us to be able to have a platform to be able to recognize our international retreats as well. So that's a big reason why we created this gala, and we're able to have this to recognize so many people. So yeah, no, it's all the space, Joe, there's no straight line with this, right? So I think we're both really good at kind of moving with the flow, and we've been able to just do a lot for veterans, for their family members in the 2 years that we've been merged together.
That's fantastic. All right, so let's work towards winding down here. And in review, we have your new book. What's the title again of the new book, and where can people find that?
Yeah, Veterans Guide to Psychedelics. There you go. It's on Amazon though, Joe, so you can grab that on Amazon.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. I was very excited when I was reading it. This is very excellent for that population. And then the gala. What are the details on the gala, and where can people kind of work towards finding tickets?
Yep, they can go ahead and email me. It's Allison at heroicheartsproject.org, and I will get them the ticket link if anybody wants to join us at the gala. It is December 5th in LA. So yeah, I think that's the best way to do it than us putting out, unless you'd like me to give you the donor box link and we can send that out to you as well. But you tell me what's easiest for you and your listeners.
Yeah, we'll be sure to put it in the show notes and comments. And just for listeners, it's Allison with 2 L's. And
yes,
Allison,
and an I.
Yeah, it's with 2 L's. Yeah. And I'm very excited to be there. I can't wait. I'm definitely looking much more forward to this gala than yet another trip to Las Vegas, but I'll make the best of both. Remind conference should be interesting, and I'll do some groundwork while I'm there to try to get some more people to come, because there's so much LA there. So
awesome.
That should be lovely. Yeah. Anything else we want to shout out before we wrap here?
I think that covers it. Thank you so much, Joe, for having us.
Joe, for us, it's been great being in the space with you and all your continuous support, and just seeing how much this space has shifted. And so it's always cool to have you as a friend and in the corner, and it'll be good to see you again in person December 5th.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah,
well,
thanks,
thank you
Joe.
both for being here, and we'll talk more soon. Thanks everybody for tuning in.